is the Writer's Almanac for Wednesday, June the 30th, 2021. It was on this date in 1864, the height of the Civil War, President Lincoln granted the Yosemite Valley to California for, quote, public use, resort, and restoration. It was the first time the federal government ever set aside land specifically for preservation and recreational use. And a year after, 1865, Frederick Law Olmsted, famous for designing Central Park in New York City, wrote a paper arguing for national parks at the request of the Board of Yosemite Commissioners. It's the anniversary of the founding of the National Organization for Women in 1966 in Washington, D.C., the largest women's rights organization in this country. It's the birthday of the poet Czeslaw Milosz, born in Czeslaw, Lithuania, 1911, grew up in a Polish-speaking family. The family eventually settled in Poland. Milosz studied law rather than literature in college because he said there were so many girls studying literature. It was called the marriage department. After the Nazis invaded Poland in 1939, Milosz found a job as a janitor at a university and wrote anti-Nazi poetry secretly for underground publications. He witnessed the genocide of the Jews in Warsaw, one of the first poets to write about it in his book of poems, Rescue, 1945. After the war, Milosz got a job working as a diplomat for Communist Poland, though he was not a member of the Communist Party. And one night in the winter of 1949, on his way home from a government meeting, he saw several jeeps filled with political prisoners surrounded by soldiers. He said, "It was then that I realized what I was part of." He defected in 1951, went to Paris, was attacked by many intellectuals who were pro-communist at the time, including the poet Pablo Neruda, who wrote an article about him called The Man Who Ran Away. Milosz moved to the United States, began teaching at University of California at Berkeley. He was still writing poetry in Polish. His poems were not translated into English until 1973. He had mixed feelings about this country. He wrote, "What splendor, what poverty, what humanity, what inhumanity, what mutual goodwill, what individual isolation, what loyalty to the ideal, what hypocrisy, what a triumph of conscience, what perversity." And then everything changed for him in 1980 when he got a phone call at 3 a.m. telling him that he had won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Czeslaw Milosz, who said language is the only homeland. Here's a poem for today by Czeslaw Milosz entitled Fiction. Going south, we watched spring unroll like a proper novel, forsythia, dogwood, rose, bare trees, green lace, full shade. By the time we arrived in Georgia, the complications were deep. When we drove back, we read from back to front. Maroon went wild, went scarlet, burned once more, and then withdrew into pink, tentative, still in bud. I thought, if only we could go on and meet again, shy as strangers. Fiction, a poem by Czeslaw Milosz from her collection Alive Together, published by Louisiana State University Press and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac. Be well, do good work, keep in touch.